Welcome to topic 11. We're up to the second to last topic in the whole short course, and we're going to be looking at phonological processes and in particular how to work on phonological errors using a minimal pairs approach. Let's have a look through the pages of our booklet. To look at what we can call all of these speech errors that we've been talking about when we've said stopping and fronting. We're actually going to just check that we realize that, we've been using these names and just sort of what those names mean. And then there's one technique which we've sort of looked at a little bit already. Remember when we did the S to D, where we went S to D? So we were saying done instead of sun. And that is actually just a minimal pair because it's exactly the same, isn't it? The is the same and the n is the same. So that's one of the ways a word is a minimal pair. And the other way that a word is a minimal pair is if they both mean something. I had someone starting topic 1 and they said to me, I don't get this thing about phoneme. And I said, a phoneme has to have meaning. And they're like, no, I don't really get that. And then I said, well, if we have ball, if with ball you don't use the voice and you say p, then you get Paul, and it's a different meaning, isn't it? So when it's a phoneme is when you change one sound to another sound, and by doing that, it creates a new meaning. I wonder if you've been noticing that sometimes a speech error creates a new word, but sometimes it doesn't. Like if it's string, and they leave the s off, and remember the t would be more like a d, and they said, look what I'm doing with this dring. Well, dring isn't another word in English. So we're not likely to go, oh, that's a dring. We're likely to go, oh, you must have meant string. But when we change a sound and it's now a new word, it would be instead of sun, if they said done, then done means something, doesn't it? What does done mean? Finished. Yeah, so now if someone says done instead of sun, the meaning changes. So today we're going to look at this idea of when someone has a speech error, could their error mean something else and therefore a listener gets confused? And if so, we can use that to help them to see you're going to have to change the way you're saying that. You're going to have to change that habit. So a minimal pairs approach is about changing a habit through the meaning. Because we're in the second to last week, if you're feeling like, oh, I've learned enough, I really can't keep taking on more theory, that's okay. You can just sort of sit back and be a little bit more relaxed today and just see that some of what we're saying today is just going to consolidate what we already know. We're just looking at it from a slightly different angle, but it's not really going to be new. It's actually just going to be more consolidating. And you'll go, oh, yeah, I realize that now. So that's what's nice about today. So today we're going to bring in a new aspect, and it might even seem a little bit counterintuitive. Do you remember all along I've been saying, don't let people go into the red zone. Keep them in the yellow, keep them confident, keep them in the green. Well, today we're actually going to talk about what if we were to frustrate the client. But we don't want to frustrate them so much that they're in the red zone. So this is where you really use your people skills and your psychology, and you really read people's nonverbals. We're going to look at what is it like to frustrate the client just maybe 2 or 3 times and assess if it's working. And if it's working, that little bit of frustration is going to motivate them to say something differently. But if they're getting too frustrated, we'll have to back off and go, that method's not working. Okay. So with minimal pairs, it's going to be about demonstrating to the client their speech error now means something else. They could get misunderstood, and you are actually going to like role play a little bit being misunderstood. And we find in speech pathology, this is really powerful. It's really powerful. So I've given a few examples in that first video, so you're probably getting a little bit of an idea, but we're also going to go through that in a bit more detail as well. So I wonder if any of you have ever heard someone introduce themselves, their name, and they have a speech error, and then you're a little bit embarrassed because you don't know their name. Like a good example would be Kaylin. So there's all sorts of names now. Have you noticed that parents are getting very creative with names? So if someone said, my child's called Kaylin, you'd be like, oh, okay. And then someone else might say, my child's called Dalen. And you'd be like, oh, okay. And then you might say, oh, my child's called Talon. You might go, Talon, I haven't heard that one, but yeah, okay, that's quite reasonable. Or my child's called Galen. Would you agree that all of those could actually be names? So if a child came up to you and you said, what's your name? And they said, Dalen, you're probably just going to go, hi, Dalen. But what if they said, no, Dalen? What are you thinking now? It's not Dalen. All right. What would be your next guess? Dalen. Ah, you might just say it again. Dalen? No, Dalen. Oh. Galen? No, Dalen. By now they've probably walked off. Okay. So this is an example of this child's speech error is making you think it's something else. If the child's actually called Kaylin and they're saying Dalen, what sort of changes are they making? What's happening to the position? K is back and they're saying D, middle. They're fronting. Typical sort of error, fronting. What's happening to the voicing? K in Kaylin is K, voiceless. And they're saying D, voiced. So they're voicing. So Dalen is fronting and voicing. Both typical error patterns, aren't they? We're going to start to use this word error pattern. So if Kaylin was 2, that would be quite acceptable. A little 2-year-old, hi, I'm Dalen. I'm Dalen. And they might even, what might Dalen do with his l? What might happen to the l for a 2-year-old? What? I'm Daywin. I'm Daywin. Now you're like going, okay, is it Daywin? Is it Darren? If they're 2, you're probably going to look to a parent, aren't you, and say, what's their name? If they're 2, what's the chances there'll be an adult with them that will know their name? Pretty good, unless you've got a lost child. Yeah. But what if they're 5 and they've said, hi, I'm Daywin? They could be quite independent. And I've seen just relationships get off on the wrong foot and just completely break down. So what we need to do with Kaylin, and I'm just emphasizing my L there, Kaylin, if Kaylin is 5 and he's calling himself Daywin, we need to tell him, people are not understanding you. This is important, Kaylin, that we change your speech habit. And so then we want to see if he can make K. I'm going to ask him for a word with K on the end, word final position, because it's the easier place for K. What do you think I'm going to ask him to say? Book? Yeah, I might go, I've found out he's called Kaylin, all right, because he's run away from me. So the first thing I've done is gone and found out his name. Oh, it's Kaylin, right. Oh, okay. Hey, Kaylin. Now he's like, oh, yeah, that's right, Daywin. He'll still say Daywin, even though I've just said Kaylin. I've gone, hey, what's this called that I read from? And I bet he'll say book. And I'll be like, oh, I can make a k. Before you did this course, do you think you would have been like, hey, Kaylin, if you can say k at the end of book, why aren't you saying it at the start of your name? Does anyone think they would have thought that? Yeah. But what do we know now? Well, first of all, we know that the word position matters. And I just did this training on Monday with a group of very experienced teachers. And a couple of them said, we never realized that a child might be able to pronounce a sound or a phoneme in one word position and not another. And they said, as teachers, they often check, like they just hold up an alphabet letter. Can you make this sound or this phoneme? And then they try it just in one word. And it was actually quite insightful to them. Hey, we need to check it in each word position. I thought, isn't that a great thing to come from this course? So it's quite typical that the child can say book and they can say monkey, but they say tar for car. It's really common. In the word monkey, can you all say mung and stop there? Mung and then key. When you say mung, the N is actually the NG. So what's happened to your tongue? Can you stop when you get to mung? Your tongue's all ready for the k. Yeah, it's in the back position. Monkey. So this would be a good experiment for you, Ali. You'll have quite a few children in your preschool that can't say car. They'll say ta or maybe da, but they'll say monkey and book correctly. And so now we're really not talking about articulation anymore, because to articulate means, can they actually produce the sound in isolation? The child that goes, oh yeah, that's a monkey and that's a book. Yeah. They sometimes even get it in a cluster. Oh, that's a clock. But then they'll say, oh, I came here in my tar. Now, as speech pathologists, we're not going to call it articulation. We're going to call it phonology. We're going to say it's a phonological process. But the word that I'd like you to learn today is just error pattern. Okay, because that's what I would say to a parent or a teacher, these error patterns. But the technical word is from phoneme, phonological process. And we know that the process for the child that says tar for car, but can say monkey and book, there's in their speech center in their brain, it's kind of like they've gone, right, any words with k in the middle put here on this shelf, and any with k on the end put here on this shelf, and that's in the k section. But if it's at the start of the word, go and put it in the t section. And we don't really know why children do it, other than it sort of simplifies it a bit. And what we know with phonological processes is they're developmental. So just like children will crawl and then they'll stand up and then they'll walk and then they'll run and then they'll jump, phonological processes, or these patterns we've been learning about all throughout the course, they're developmental. That makes sense, doesn't it? Remember the development chart? And I said 2-year-olds probably won't have k, and 3-year-olds will just be getting it, but 4-year-olds will have it. Well, the brain goes, by the time they're 3 or 4, hang on, let's get that k from that shelf and bring it over to the right place. So this is why speech pathology has that extra layer of sort of complexity, and why we can't just use an articulation chart to sort of diagnose a child, because sometimes they can make the sounds, but they've just got them in the wrong compartments. And then over time, they get themselves sorted. And we look out for the children that don't get themselves sorted. Yeah. And if they're not sorted in time, then we say they have a delay. But it's really good to talk about this, because you might hear the child that says tar instead of car, and you're like, aha, they can't make k. Right, I'm onto this. You might even say to someone, that person can't make k, so I'm going to help them. And that person might come back and go, well, they can because they just said book. And then you might be like, oh, yeah, oops. And then you're confused. So I want you to be able to say to them, oh, actually, good point. It's not that they can't say k, they can. It's just that they can't say it in the word initial position because of this pattern. Yeah. And the way to help the child that can make the sound but isn't putting it in the right place, and they've got a bit old and now it's forming a really deep habit, and we have to show them, if you say done instead of sun, it sounds like you're talking about I'm finished. Or if you say ball instead of Paul, someone might think it's about throwing rather than a person's name. And this is what we call minimal pairs. So yeah, that's just a little bit of time to just sort of think about that. When someone changes something with a distortion, it doesn't form a new word in most cases, unless it's a vowel distortion. Sometimes that does. But consonant distortions, like when they go, instead of home, if they just go home and they just make a funny sound, or home, it doesn't sound right, but it's not going to confuse the person with a new meaning. But what if I said this word, wing, wing? Can you show me the wing? What are you imagining? A bird? Yeah, good. Yeah, a bird. But what if I said it now? Wing, look at my wing. Look at my wing. What's my process? Gliding? Gliding, yeah. So sometimes children get away with it. Like they'll go, look at my wing, it's so pretty. And we'll just go, oh, yes, that's your ring. But what if they said, guess what? I got a present yesterday. I left it at home. They might go, Miss Ellie, I left it at home. I got a wing. I got a wing. And you'll be like, oh, did you get a bird? No, a wing. I got a wing. And so now it does matter. And so the older someone gets, the more likely they don't have the thing with them. So now we want to train ourselves to not go, if they go, look at my wing, we don't want to go, oh, yes, look at your wing or your ring. We want to actually go, I can't look at that because that's a ring. I thought you were talking about this, a wing. You said wing. And they'll be, no, my wing, wing. Oh, like a wing, like a bird? No, my wing. Now, if we know they can say the do you mean ring? Oh, yeah, my ring. Oh, okay, yeah, I'll look at your ring. And now we're using communication and meaning to sort of frustrate them a bit and get them to change. How many times are we going to have to do that? It might be heaps. They might come back up. Oh, yeah, I've got that beautiful wing on today. Oh, I'm looking for a bird because I heard wing. No, my wing. I'm still looking for the bird. My ring. Oh, your ring. And we frustrate them to get them to change. Lisa, when you're working with Brett, this might be the case where if he says a word and he substitutes a sound and it means something else, you're probably going to go, oh, I know what you mean, Brett. I'll just respond. But if you know that he's capable of saying it the right way and it's just a habit, now you want to point out to him, oh, I thought you meant this because this is what it sounded like. So what your homework today would be, Lisa, was to go away and see, in fact, even speak to the speech pathologist, speak to Ashley and say, does he have some minimal pairs? For example, like, what colour do you want? Back. What colour do you think he means if he says back? This is just a hypothesis. Black? Yeah. But if you say, what colour would you like? And someone says back. Oh, I heard back like your back. No, what colour? Yeah, back. Oh, did you mean with the L in it? Black? Now, if he can immediately go, oh, yeah, black, and say it correctly, now it's your job to show him that's what you need, because another person's not going to know. And he might come into a shop and say, can I have a back one? Can I have a back bag? A back bag? And they'll be like, a backpack? No, a back bag. back bag. Oh, do you mean a backpack? And then he might go, oh, it doesn't matter, and walk out. Yeah. So it's your job now to train yourself. Well, in the past, I think there's a consensus that adults would have been more likely to correct children, whereas now we're a little bit more just let children have their speech errors, and teachers are reporting this. So children are getting to school having said things the wrong way and no one has corrected it. And sometimes they've even gone along with it. Ali, you might see that even in your preschool. Like if a child runs up to you and goes, oh, look at my wing, look at my wing. Sometimes a parent will go, yeah, she's showing you her wing. Isn't that cute? She says wing. Ali, do you get that sometimes? Do you want to say?
I actually have a few parents, and it's like, because it's cute, like bobble, like instead of bottle, because
bottle. Yeah.
they enjoy it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost like, and their little ones are growing up, and they're like, oh no, they don't want them to get rid of that because it's beautiful.
Yeah, let them call it bobble. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a few parents who are like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So we've got two jobs now. One is we have to first of all check that it is a habit, that they can change it, that it's not an articulation. Because maybe 2-year-olds that say bobble possibly can't say bottle. Do you remember that t comes in at 3? So a 2-year-old, we don't have to say, no, it's bottle. We might show them that, but if they just keep saying bobble, bobble, that's okay. And same with an adult. If we said it's black and they said back, and we tried and they can't copy it, we just have to accept they're not ready. Remember, we don't push them if they're not ready. But if as soon as you say black, they go, oh, black. Be like, it's within your capacity to do that. What's the phonological process or error pattern called for someone that says back instead of black? Do you want to all have a go, see if you can type in the chat? What would a speech pathologist call it, the person that says back instead of black? And they can say l because they say light and like. Anyone think what that's called? What is but and l together? Cluster? Yeah, cluster reduction. Yeah. So the person that says back instead of black has cluster reduction. It's possibly not about the l at all. They might say light perfectly and look perfectly. And when we slow them down, we find out they can go black. Can you type now what they're likely to say for block? I'm going to build with this block. What would someone say with cluster reduction for block? Bock? Yeah. So if they're saying black as back, we might listen and we go, oh, they're saying bock. And blue, boo. Now we want to say, it's not that they can't say all, it's not articulation now, because if we went up to someone and said, oh, I'm helping them with all, because for black they say back and they can't say all, you might lose your credibility because the person might go, oh, okay. And then that person runs up and goes, oh, I'd like some. And they'll be like, oh, they seem fine with all in that word. And they kind of see how they might dismiss you. So what you need to say is they have an error pattern where they can say all, but in their brain, when it's a but-all word, they go and put it in the shelf that just says but. And that's because they're doing cluster reduction. And so then we can work on all of the words that have all clusters. We could work on play and black and sleep and clock all at the same time, because we're actually trying to break the habit of just leaving the L out. So that's when a speech pathologist says they're working on a phonological process, or they're saying we're working on phonology. phonology, so PH at the start. And sometimes a speech pathologist will give a diagnosis and they won't say this person has an articulation delay or an articulation disorder. They'll say they have a phonological delay or a phonological disorder. Can you see now that that relates to phoneme? Ali, have you heard that term before? Phonological disorder or phonological delay?
Yeah, my daughter had it. So
yeah, okay.
So yeah, but I hadn't, before she did speech therapy, I hadn't actually.
Yeah.
I didn't realize there was a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, until I was
that
explained it. Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah.
And I'd say that your experience would be common. Liesl, have you heard of that difference before, articulation versus phonology? And you know what, I would never go up to a parent or a client or even a teacher and say, oh yeah, they have a phonological delay, because that just sounds like gobbledygook, doesn't it? It sounds a little bit more logical to you now because you've learned about phonemes, but people don't know what phonological means. I will say they have error patterns. I'll say they can make these speech sounds, like they can say k, like in book, but they're just not putting it in the right place. That helps the parent to then go, oh, okay, so they're not just being lazy, because again, we get this, well, you can make k. They're not just being lazy. So it's helpful for the client. Another really interesting thing is when we ask a client to say k, k, are we asking them to say that in isolation? Is that the same as isolation, or is that actually a consonant and a vowel? K, k. That's a consonant and a vowel, isn't it? It's a k, voiceless, and an vowel. So what tends to happen is the person that can't say k in the word initial position, so they say tar for car, people will go around saying, no, it's not tar, say this, k, say k, k. And they can't say it because that's just like, still like car or ku or key. So you have to actually say, can you just go k, k, with no vowel? And you have to shape it like that. Sometimes they can't even do that. They can say book and monkey, but you say, can you say k? And they'll go t. And then you'll be like, no. When they can't make it in isolation, can you start working through your speech hierarchy? All you can do is auditory bombardment, the listening. So that's another reason why we need minimal pairs. We have to frustrate that person so that they start to grope and try. Get the idea? So I'm just going to use the whiteboard. So if they're saying car, but they're saying it as tar, I mean, tar is another word. It's like tar on the road or tar like thank you. It's not a really obvious one, but I like cap and tap because we all know cap or a hat and a tap. So what we have to do is, even if they can't go k by itself, we'll have to say to them, let's do it at a whole word level now and go, if you tell me t with a t sound, I'm going to pretend to turn on the tap, or I might have a real tap. And if you say it with a k, cap, I'm going to put the cap on my head, and you try to make the cap a bit more fun. Whee, I put the cap on, whee, cap. You tell me what you want me to do, and they really want you to do that cap. So they'll go tap, and you go, okay, turn on the tap. And they're like, no, tap. Oh, I'll turn on the tap. I heard you say tap. No, tap. Okay, and they're trying to get you to do that. And then you have to say, if you want that one, you've got to use that sound, cap. And what happens is they try so hard, a bit like the golf swing, they try so hard, and then they'll go cap, yes, and then you reward it. And this minimal pairs works. It's one of the ways we can sometimes get it. So your job then when you're working with someone is to listen and go, that error, I know what they meant, but that's going to confuse someone else. So I need to point that out to them. We don't use this method with a 2-year-old because the 2-year-old's just going to go, forget you, and walk off, aren't they? We bring this in once they've got the language skills. Yeah, here's our booklet. I did a long intro then because it's nice just to be able to sit back and think and chat, and then we've got our context set now. Tap and cat, there we go. And you'll find you walk around thinking about everything as a minimal pair. So like we did black and back, blue and boo. And the great thing is you can go onto the internet and just type in minimal pairs and it all just comes up. All the resources will be there for you. Someone's thought of all the words and all the pictures. And I want you to think of me when I graduated uni and there was no internet. I had to make up all my own words and do all my own drawings. You would have read through this handout. Hopefully that's making a lot more sense now. A phonological process is the technical term. The term I suggest you use is error pattern. And all of the things you've been learning about can be applied to this. So the placement. Some children get everything that's in the back of their mouth and they move it forward and they're fronting. Can be the manner. Sometimes all those long flowing fricative sounds are stopped, even though they can make the sounds in isolation, but remember in their brain, they've just got them in the wrong place. Some people don't make any voiceless sounds. Pig is big, to is do, cow is gow. I had a little boy visit my farm yesterday. We're working on his speech. He's an older child to be having these errors because he has a diagnosis. And he goes, we see the gows now, gows. You see the gows? And what was he meaning? Gow. Cow. Yep. And what do you think I did as a speech pathologist? I went, oh, can you make this sound? And he went, k. So I said, you want to see the cows? And he went, yeah, gows. And he's like, stop it, Jane. I just want to see the gows. Stop talking to me. Where are the gows? But you see, I'm frustrating him now. I've got the power because I know where the cows are. So I said, we need to say it like this. Cow. Cow. Now, to his credit, he had about 4 goes. Couldn't do it. It was too quick. We weren't doing therapy like planned therapy. I was probing. I was going, right, is he ready? And I had to go, he's not ready. He couldn't go cow just out in the field. So I went, okay, we'll go and see the cows. But what do you think I said? Right, next session, I know where I'm starting. And there's so many lovely words with so he's 8 and he still voices, okay? He voices other sounds too. What do you think he would say for 1, 2? Do. Yep. What would he say for 8, 9, 10? 8, the t might be right, final position. 9, den. Yeah. Do you see how speech pathologists can look like they're mind readers because they can guess what a child's going to do, but we're just following these predictable patterns. We get the children that change 2 characteristics, voicing and stopping. And then we get, sometimes we'll just call it a substitution. If a child just says d for everything, we'll just call that a substitution. But it is a process in that this child's error pattern is everything is stored as d. Some children have omissions. They can say all the final sounds in isolation, but they leave them all off. So book becomes book, home becomes ho, man becomes meh. And then we work on final consonant deletion. We don't work on just final t or just final s. We work on all final sounds. There's the cluster reduction, which we talked about. And then there's position. It can be position dependent. So often the affricates are correct in the word final position, but not initial and medial. So they'll go dump and then badder for badger, and then they'll say bridge perfectly. I've seen so many kids that can say bridge, but they can't say jump. Yes, phonological processes are developmental, and we use this word suppressed. So they disappear or they're suppressed. It's like they want to say it their preferred way, but that pattern gets suppressed and the correct sound comes in its place. Some phonological processes are atypical. So it's really typical to emit final sounds, especially if you're 2, but it's never typical to emit initial sounds. Once someone's speaking in words, like babies emit all sorts because they're just cooing and babbling. But a 4-year-old that's saying Ike and and we never go, oh, he'll grow out of that. It's not developmental. That's an atypical process. And you get these funny ones like for like. And then sometimes the fronting and the backing can go more than one spot. So quite typical is the child that actually says green for green. I shouldn't say typical because that's confusing. I've seen it many times. It is an unusual error or an atypical error, but we get these children that go from g and they miss the middle and they go right to the front. Prack for crack. Yeah, so we're just always wanting to go, is it an articulation error? They can't form it at all. They're not using it anywhere in any word. So it's correct to say they can't say f at all because it's just or is it a process? They can say off, but they say bore. And that's going to help you to not sort of put your foot in it or lose your credibility around someone. If you're trying to work it out, you ask, is the sound wrong in one word only or multiple words? And is it just one phoneme that has that characteristic? So yeah, go looking for your patterns. This page here is for those of you that do work with children in the 2 to 6 year age group and you just like to print this and stick it up somewhere. It's the 8 most common error patterns according to me. All right, this is my table. And would you agree if you look down there, you'd go, Jane, this is just everything you've been teaching us for the last 10 workshops. But we're just calling it something slightly different now. We're just saying these are actually common patterns. So I'd suggest if that's of interest to you, print that off and stick it up somewhere. Probably the only one we haven't really spent a lot of time on out of all of that is the WSD, weak syllable deletion. We have looked at it, but not in a lot of detail. So that's the child that instead of computer just says pewter. They're leaving off the weak syllable or the syllable that is usually a schwa. Can you hear the schwa in that? Computer, computer. So they're just saying pewter. Or in balloon, they might say boon or they might say loon, but often the 2 syllables collapse into one and we get boon for balloon. It's really common. Or butterfly, they've just missed the middle one. Is that where the schwa is? Butterfly, butterfly. So they go buffly, buffly. Yeah. And then all of those others we've been talking about. Okay. On this page, we talk about how it can get complicated. And Ali, you might have some of these children in your preschool. It could be your very talkative 2-year-olds. So 2-year-olds are allowed to have lots of error patterns because that's where they're up to developmentally. And if they're a 2-year-old that only says a couple of things like me turn, mummy home, more book, we can understand them. But if you get those very linguistic 2-year-olds that go, excuse me, Miss Ali, this is not a suitable book that you've given to me. That is not one that I would have read to me by my grandmother. Okay, and some of them talk like that. If they then have lots of phonological processes, you get stuff that's really hard to understand. Like, hi, my name is Dan. Dan you dim me dummer your nat? Will you dare your bin bun with me? Do you? Why bin bun with bin idin? I do. They are very yummy. We eat a day? I don't wait do day dumb. That's how a 2-year-old might sound. That's really chatty. Or it could be the 4 or 5-year-old with lots of phonological processes. Yeah. Okay, it's got the answers at the bottom if you haven't looked at that yet. Liesl, could you unmute for me? What's this child's name?
Sam.
Yeah. Did you get that by thinking, well, I could be stopping and voicing? Or did you look and you could, yeah, well done. And it is Sam. Sam is 5 years old. Just
actually, no, because I'm just reading it. That's how I did it.
Yeah. Yes.
Damn, I assume that would be Sam.
Sam, well done. Yeah. Yeah. So Dam isn't a typical name. So although there's probably someone out there that's called their child Dam. Hopefully not. But
yeah, probably.
but yeah, that was, I would guess that it's Sam. Could have been Pam. Could have been Pam, couldn't it? Could have been Pam. But I've told you it's Sam and he's 5 years old. When I was reading that, Liesl, I'm sure now it's making more sense to you because you're tuning your ear into all of these error patterns.
Yeah.
But could you understand what I was saying?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
And I couldn't read it quick enough to go, because
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So when children are speaking like this, speech pathologists will transcribe what they're hearing, and then they'll go back and look at it to try and work it out.
Mm-hmm.
But also the reason I could read it quite quickly like that is because I'm so used to hearing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll do it one more time. And Mikhail, see if you have any idea what Sam, who calls himself Dam, is saying, okay? Hi, my name is Dam. Dan you dim me dummer your nat? Will you dare your bin bun with me? Do you wipe bin bun with bin iding? I do. They are very yummy. We eat a day. I don't wait to day dum. Any idea what Sam's talking about?
Sharing a snack?
Yes, well done.
Sharing
yeah. Dan you dimmy dummer your nat? Can you give me some of your snack?
Yeah.
Let's look at dit for give. What's happening? What patterns can you see in dit for give? Gert's gone to dit.
Gert to dit, yeah.
Fronting, yep. What's happened to the V?
The give.
Missing altogether?
Yeah, it's omission.
Omission, final consonant deletion. Yeah, so we can get an idea. Look at the word snack. It's got cluster reduction and it's got final consonant deletion. So snack's gone to nat.
Nat, yeah.
Now we've got Ali here, and Ali, I imagine that would be much easier for you to understand because you would have kids talking to you like that. Probably. Do you work with the little 2 and 3-year-olds, Ali? Do you want to unmute? Thanks, Mikhail.
I do, yeah. I do work with both of them. So I have 3 to 5s in my room, but we all share, meal times and things together. So
yeah.
But I actually have a few like 4.5-year-olds that sound like this.
Yeah. So that's a bit scary, isn't it?
Yeah, who mum's kind of deciding whether they go to school next year, and they like even me who's had them for a long time still find it very difficult to kind of decipher what they're saying, especially when they talk really quickly and you don't have context of like if they don't have something in their hands, it's very difficult. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And Mikhail, did you think snack, do you reckon the fact that there was a bag there and an apple, do you think that helped you to go, it could be snack?
I actually needed to not look at the screen and just listen.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I took that by listening.
Yeah, good. So sometimes we can get it from listening and sometimes we'll be like, I've got no idea. What about the next bit? What do you think the next bit means? Will you dare your bin bun with me?
Will you share your...
Bin bun. What's a bin bun? Bin bun. I'll tell you what the phonological process is. It's weak syllable deletion. That means one of the syllables is missing. So bin would really be a 2-syllable word. Liesl thinks it could be cinnamon bun.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of syllables for a little kid.
Yeah, but it's not cinnamon bun.
Bin buns.
So I'll tell you another process. They've got stopping and they've also got voicing. So if b came from a fricative, what's a front voiceless fricative?
Oh,
Fin. Okay, so now what if it was, will you share your fin bun with me? Fin bun.
Fin bun, fin bun.
Liesl thinks she's got it.
What does she say?
Finger bun, yes.
Oh my God.
Finger bun. Will you share your finger bun with me? That's what he's saying. So the speech pathologist would be going, okay, I've got stopping, I've got voicing, I've got weak syllable deletion, and they'll go bin bun, that's going to be finger bun. So you get the idea. So this child possibly can say f. I'd want to go and see if they can say f in isolation or not. They possibly can say s in isolation. Some children can copy the individual sounds, but they're in their brain, it just says, when you're talking, get every sound and change it to a d. And so with this one, we would work on some different processes. Now, down the bottom, I've got it written upside down here. Hi, my name is Sam. Can you give me some of your snack? Will you share your finger bun with me? Do you like finger buns with pink icing? I do. They are really yummy. Let's eat, okay? I can't wait to taste some. So our voiceless fricative is the most commonly used consonant in spoken English. So the child that can't say s, or who has an error pattern where they stop and voice, they're very hard to understand. Yeah. So we don't want to let that 4.5-year-old go off to school if they don't have any fricatives, because children aren't going to understand them. And then what's going to happen with their friendships? Kids are going to walk away from them, and they're going to feel like they're silly, and they might have trouble with their spelling. Okay. So the thing we call the impact of these error patterns, we say it's their speech intelligibility. I wonder if you've heard that word before. Intelligibility sounds like intelligence. So I don't say intelligibility without explaining what I mean. We might say their speech is unintelligible. This means that a listener is not able to understand what they're saying, and it's usually due to lots of error patterns. So the child that has a lateral S and says, can I have 6 sausages? We know they mean 6 sausages, but the child that says, can I have dit-dot-ida? Well, if they're pointing to sausages, I want dit-dot-ida, you might work it out. But what if they came rushing in and get, Mikkel, guess what I've got in my bag? Dit-dot-ida. Dit-dot-ida. You're not going to know that that's 6 sausages, are you? Yeah. So what's the little boy saying? No one dan undan me. Day I door bunny. Oh, Ali, do you want any of your kids to get to school and say, no one dan undam me? Day I door bunny? What's this little child saying? Can you all try and work out what he's saying?
Say I talk funny.
No one can understand me. They say I talk funny. And these poor little kids that often have great language skills, great comprehension, they know exactly what they want to say, and they speak quickly because that's how we all speak. And they come running up to you and go, no one understand me, today door bunny. I don't door bunny. And you're like going, a bunny? Do you want to show me your bunny? No, bunny, I don't door bunny. They're not under me. And they run off, and then they go, right, whack. And they've hit someone now. Oh, now they're off to the principal. I've even heard of reception children, like kindergarten children, being suspended from school. And I'll be like, ah. And I feel my heart breaks because they often don't even get what's going on. And that's why we have to show them, when you say bunny, we're not hearing funny. You're meaning funny, but we hear bunny, we hear rabbit. So we've got to stop responding to them and going, yeah, we know what you mean. We've got to show them that, you know what? I know what you mean, because I'm the one here to help you, but everyone else doesn't know what you mean. So other people are not going to understand. So then you have to sort of role play a little bit. So when they come in and go, I'm not door bunny, we just say, do you mean funny with that should we try that? And then you get them to a place where they're willing to have a go. Okay. Do you think it impacts academic development too? What about the child that could sit down and write the word funny? The teacher will often say, even in kindergarten, you know, can you have a go writing a little sentence? And the child will sit at their desk and they want to write fun, and they'll go, bun, bun. The teacher did write it like I day it, like I day it. The teacher said, write it like I say it. Bun, bun, and they'll write a B-U-N because that's what they're saying. And then it really has a big problem with academics. That's why Ali's exactly right in, you know, do we hold that child back a year? Because they're going to be really frustrated. And it would be good to get the speech pathologist involved. The speech pathologist might say, look, they've only got 2 phonological errors. They're really responding well to therapy. I'm confident by next year they'll be fine. Or they might say they've got 7 phonological error patterns and they're making quite slow progress in therapy. Some of the error patterns are atypical. If there's an opportunity to hold them back a year, I'd strongly recommend it. One of the things we know is children can be more supported in a preschool environment than a kindergarten environment, just because they're in the preschool environment, they're mixing with younger children. They could be put with peers that, you know, maybe also talking like that because they're 2 or 3 that don't mind, that are still going to say, come and play in the damn bit with me, that's okay. But if they're at school and they're in recess, they don't have one-on-one teachers checking on them. And now they're interacting with 5, 6, 7-year-olds who are all generally speaking and can be understood. And they're much more likely to struggle socially. Also, the class teacher's trying to manage all of the students. You know, they have to sit at their desk. If they get upset, you know, that it can lead to other problems. So that's that idea there of behaviour issues. So if any of you ever have a chance to recommend to a parent, why don't you work on that while they're still at preschool? That's the time to do it. Okay. So if we look at the goals for therapy with minimal pairs, we're still going to use those terms we've already introduced, old way, new way, or old sound, new sound. And now we're adding this extra element of showing them when you use your old sound, it means something else. The child that says a d for F, if they want to say for, but they use a d, what are they going to say? Door. Now it means the door. So when I'm doing, I'll just stop the share. When I'm doing therapy for the child that says a door for 4, I'll go, we're going to count. When you get to this one, bite your lip and say 4. And if they go, okay, Jane, yep, 1, 2, B, they might say B for 3. Door, I won't go, no, remember 4. I'll go, door, what, the door? Should I walk out the door? And they'll be like, no. Oh, okay, remember it's 4. So then they might get it the next time. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, great counting. Can you do it again? Yeah. 1, 2, B, door. Door? Sometimes I'll get up and, oh, okay, and I'll walk out the door. And they'll be, no, come back. And I'm trying to show them that when door comes out of their mouth, it means something else. It's really powerful. And some kids, you can play with it. You can have a game. We get them to be the teacher and then we be the teacher. So at first we'll say, you do it. So I'll go to them, 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe they point to a number 4. And then I'll go 1, 2, B, door. And then they're allowed to get up and run out the door and have a good laugh. So you do it both ways. You keep it lighthearted, but you're showing them about meaning. If it totally sends your client into the red zone and they're just really not coping, then you can't use this method. But most kids, you can use this method. Most little kids will be like, ah. With my nephew Enzo, who's done some of the videos, you know, we did chew and shoo. And we go, can you chew it? And he was deaffricating. And then shoo, and we'd point to the shoe. And then he'd be going, no, shoe. Oh, the shoe on your foot. No, shoe. Oh, yeah, the shoe on your foot. No. Do you mean the eating one? Well, go like this. Chew. And then he'd go, chew. Oh, okay. And then he'd laugh because he liked me doing the chew. So we're comparing these words. This could be a really good little group activity, Ali, at your preschool. You know, you could say, what am I doing, everyone? Chew. Everyone goes, shoe. You could pretend to put on a shoe. And then you get let different children be the teacher. They stand up and say it. And get your children that can, shoe, chew. And then you might get your child that you're working on that transitioning. But obviously you'd have to check that they don't get to the point where they're too upset or they get teased. Be ready to step in. Yeah. This really fits into that other side of things where the parents let them do it, because the parents know it means something else too. And they might go, oh, it's just so cute. And we need to say to parents, yeah, when they're 2 or 3, it's cute, but they're getting ready for school. So let's get them saying it the right way now. I've got here just deciding if Sam is suitable for minimal pairs, or if someone is suitable. So you're looking at, you know, are there predictable error patterns, so that you go, I think they're fronting, and then you go, yep, tar for car. What would someone with a predictable pattern say for girl if they're fronting? Dirl? Yeah. So if a child comes to you and goes, can I play with my tar? If they're a boy, say to them, are you a boy or a girl? And they'll go, oh, boy. And well, what's that, child? And then go to them, fingers crossed, I'm going to be right. And they go, Dirl. And you're like, yes. And you'll know. Or if they're a girl themselves, are you a boy or a girl? Dirl. And you're just going, yeah, okay. So this child is fronting. And then is there a group of phonemes, like all final consonants? So you can go through this list, which is pretty much what we've been saying. Then you're finding out if they can say the sound in isolation. So you're going to check. You're going to maybe look at the final position. And then it's really important for minimal pairs that they have language skills. They've got to have receptive language skills, which means understand. Like you're going to say to them, can you say it a different way? Or you're saying it the same. You're saying do for to and do for I do it. So you wanting to be able to talk to them about things. So the child, say with an intellectual disability, who doesn't have good language skills yet, you can't use this method because they're just not going to be able to understand, and they might just get really upset. With an adult that's had a stroke where they've had an impact on their comprehension, you wouldn't use it. So Liesl, if you were going to use this, you'd want to make sure that the concepts of same and different, the way you said it before, those sorts of things. We also tend to use things like first and start, end and last. That might be like the child that says whore for horse. We want to be able to say to them, what's on the end of that word when I say it? Horse. It's got a s on the end. End. So we want them to have a bit of an idea of those concepts. You'll be really helping them by teaching them those concepts, because when they get to school, the teacher will be using those concepts for spelling and reading. Okay, we need to make sure they can pay attention and concentrate, and that they're emotionally regulated. Okay, I will say to the parent, I'm just going to pretend I don't understand. Let's see how that goes. I don't want to upset them, because the parent might go, why are you doing that? Sometimes I'll say to the client, oh, silly me, or I'll even get a puppet. You know, I know what you're saying, but the puppet doesn't know. So then we can blame the puppet and put the puppet away. Yeah. So this is a little sheet that a lot of you, I imagine, don't need to use, but it could be useful for some people. And this is where you can actually take that sample and analyze it. And this is what a speech pathologist would do. So if we come down to the example, Sam said bin for pink, didn't he? Bin. And this is sort of the process a speech pathologist would go through in their mind. So they'd go, right, in the word pink, I'll just make that bigger. Remember, if this is all a bit much, it's fine. You can just listen. You don't have to be remembering it. But if he said pink as bin, we can now analyze it and say, all right, well, the first phoneme is a P and it's gone to a B, so I'm going to write voicing. And I could just put initials. We did a little bit of this. Do you remember back in topic 3? Yeah. And then because the N in pink, it's an NG. And now he's saying that as an N. Can you see how people might miss that one? Because the spelling is N in pink, isn't it? Would you have realised that, Ali, that pink is actually No, so this is why we need to sometimes sit down and write it. It's pink. It's not pink. Try and say it with an N. Pink. Can't do it, can you? Pink. So that's fronting. And then the N, K has gone to just the N. So it's not final consonant deletion of K. It's actually cluster reduction. So this is why, like I said, it's a bit more complicated than what it can first appear. And that's why a speech pathologist will do an analysis. So I've just fully written that out so that if you want to do an analysis, you can. But typically that's what the speech pathologist would do. And they'd say to you, hey, look, Sam needs to work on voicing and fronting and cluster reduction. And they got all of that just from bin for pink. So what I did on this page, and this is for those of you that are interested, I did all the work for you, is you can look at his conversation and see what he did. So for Sam, the second one down, where he said damn, he had stopping and voicing. Yeah. Let's look at Will. He said we. He had final consonant deletion. And we looked at finger bun, didn't we? So remember what he did with finger bun? See that one down here? Yeah. So went to B, stopping and voicing. Went to fronting. And the G was missing altogether. Weak syllable deletion. Look what I did at the bottom. What do you think those little patterns mean? Those little squares. How many of each process? And one of the things to say, yes, work on phonological processes was like lots of examples. So looking at that, which process is affecting Sam's speech the most?
Front FCD.
Who remembers what FCD is? Remember, Ali? You might
final,
as well.
Final consonant deletion.
Yeah. So a speech pathologist would probably go, let's work on final consonant deletion because it's having a big impact. We talk about the word impact. Would we work on cluster reduction as a priority?
No.
That's right. Stopping voicing. So I would probably go, yeah, I'm going to start with final consonant deletion and then I'm going to be probing for voicing, like my little client yesterday saying gow for cow. I might start to do a little bit on that too. So this is where, in order to work out the impact of phonological processes, the speech pathologist gets that speech sample and analyzes it. So I've given you that there for those of you that are interested. And then if you want to try and do that, you can. And I'll bring up the worksheet, the quiz, so that we can have a look at that before you go.
Can I ask, when you do a speech transcript like this, do you write it or do you record them? Like, how do you keep track? Because especially if they talk quite fast.
Yeah. Well, these days everyone just records because the technology's there.
Okay.
And then you just play it back after. So if you're allowed to walk around with your phones or some other recording device, and you've got consent as part of your program that you do recordings, you might as well just record it and then you can sit down and play it. But if you're working one-on-one, like if you take a child into a quiet room and you've got the time, then you could still record, but you can write as you go.
Yeah.
As a speech pathologist who graduated in 1993, we didn't have easy access to recording. We would have to have those really old-fashioned type recorders, and and then the rewind of the tape and stuff. So I would generally transcribe as I go. But I might have, like with an articulation or phonological assessment, you have all your words ready and you know what you're expecting, so you can jot things down quite quickly. And then in a speech sample where you just chat and you listen, you can't transcribe everything. You're just jotting down errors that you hear.
Yeah.
But even these days, I would record. I'm getting a sense, and then I can go back and test my theories. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I've just put an example here for Sam because we chose final consonant deletion. So I'm sort of showing you what I would do. And then again, this might give you some ideas. So now Sam's feeling a bit happier. I'm learning today the N of the word, and he's got his D. And the little gap shows that's how we'd teach him. For word, he would have said were, and instead of teaching him word, we would go word, word. So the D stands out, word. We might clap. I taught a little boy boat, and I'd tap his arm, boat, boat. And then he didn't want to do it, but he was tapping his mum's back as I was doing it. And his mum goes, he's tapping my back. I said, great. And then I walked away and mum goes, do you want to do it? And he went boat and he tapped onto mum. So sometimes a little move works. Now, we want to use consonants that Sam can say at first, just to make it a little bit easier. So I've gone back and I've checked. He can say b, d, n, w. He doesn't have any fricatives at the moment. Later on, I might try a fricative. So for house, have a think if you're working with the child that the tap worked, and now for house, he says how. What's your instinct? What are you going to do with your hand for this? Just have a go. House. Drag it, yeah. So boat, but then house, house. And you might get the child that's never used a fricative before, and they'll go house, and the tactile worked. And you're like, great, I didn't even have to teach in isolation. They might want whore, like for whore and horse, or but and bus. You know, we're trying to get them to understand. Now, but and bus aren't minimal pairs because but isn't a word, is it? So we need to find something that is. So that's why you do your Google search and you'd find something that's going to work. Go back to share. So minimal pairs, you've got to stop and go, do both words mean something? So see what I chose for Sam? I chose bow and boat because they both mean something. Bee and bean. Bee and bead. He probably knows what a bead is. I might have to teach him. Bee and beep. Now, he didn't have p or t. So I said I checked, and he could copy them really well in isolation. So now it might be the first time he uses a p. But when I tried s, he didn't have it, so I didn't include that. And then this is just the example of that method that you would have seen on the video, but we might even go to the video and have a look. I talk about getting Sam to be the teacher, and that's kind of the swapping, and then the language task. So that's sort of there as the instructions if you want to do this. But let me just bring up the quiz. So Ali, do you want to have a go at the first one? The l like to y. What's happening when it's l to work?
It's gliding.
Gliding, yeah, great. And
Yeah.
I've written the initials in, so I've sort of given you a bit of a head start. Have you found yours, Liesl?
Yep.
So in like, this child has said Y, so phoneme 2 is a K. What are you going to write at number 2 there? What's K gone to?
What's missing?
Missing, yeah. So the circle with the line through it, omission.
Yep.
So at number 3, what will you write for the type of phonological process?
Oh, you've got final consonant deletion.
Yeah, excellent. So you write it out in full, and then you just use the initials. So Ali, if you ever look at any speech pathology reports now, you'll see, or assessments, you'll see that FCD. You probably knew it from your own experiences. Yeah. We'll do one more together. Those ones are a little bit easier because I've got some answers. Let's come down to item 12, where we've got for really, where he says wee wee. So yeah, so we've got the first phoneme. 12 will be the and it's being said as a gliding. Liesl, what would you write at 16? What's phoneme 2?
16. It's the L again.
L, yeah, L. And what's it changed to?
W.
And so what's the process?
So that's a gliding again.
Gliding again, yeah. So that's a good example of someone that's gliding on both liquids, and L are both going to work. Yeah. So then you might work on L and at the same time. Yeah. And then down the bottom, don't forget to fill in your little squares of the number of processes, because that would help you to think what you might work on first. All right. So that is the most complicated of the quizzes. But yeah, that's just give yourself a pat on the back of how far you've come.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining today.
No worries. Thanks, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.